Hello and welcome guys to another video, and today we have another track guide in the Radical SR8, this time at Raceway Laguna Seca. So let's jump straight into the guide after the hot lap. So starting off this lap, one thing that you've got to watch with the Radical at Laguna is the elevation changes at this track. With a high downforce car, it can be very easy to unsettle the rear when you're coming down the hills or up the hills and you're either hard braking or hard accelerating. So just be careful with the weight transfer and the elevation changes, as it can be very easy to lose the rear of the car. But let's jump straight into the lap. So coming into the first corner, I'm looking at the foreboard and the end of this blue and white curbing. And at the end of this blue and white curbing, there's this white triangle, and I'm trying to brake around about the end of that. So where that white triangle is there, as I cross that, I'm getting on the brakes, shifting all the way down into second gear, and as I come down the hill, I'm just trailing off the brakes and trying to prevent any lockups coming into this corner. Clip that first apex. Try to either just clip the very edge of this sausage curb or avoid it completely. Just use all this blue and white curbing and treat it as a double apex. So let it go out slightly wide and then bring it back in. And I'm just using the throttle and the brake to allow the car to drift out and then bring it back in. Just trying to keep the rear as planted as possible. Get on the power nice and early, and the wider that you let it out in the mid part of the corner, the earlier it will let you get on the power for the second part, because the more you can straight line it. Use all that blue and white curbing on the left, and then open up the steering wheel nice and early, and you can use this white rumble strip on the exit here. Just be careful not to touch the gravel, because it's quite easy to trigger the off track. Coming into this right hander, I'm looking for the number 2 and the number 1 board, and braking in between the two boards. Keeping it in third gear, only braking to about 40%, and then getting on the power just after I turn in. So I'm turning in around about where this blue and white curbing ends and where the white triangle starts. Round about here, I'm turning in and then getting onto the power nice and early, turning it in. I missed the apex slightly. You can use this blue and white curbing, and I go slightly too wide. You can actually use this blue and white curbing, but I just miss it on this lap. Use all this white rumble strip on the exit, and then coming into this right hander, you only really need just a slight tap of the brakes or a lift. Just depends on the track conditions. It was 30 degrees track for this hot lap, so quite hot temps. But as you see, it's only about a 20% brake there. About 3/4 of the way between the 2 and the 1 board, just before the white triangle. Just a slight brake. Let the car roll round the corner. Apex just at the end of this sausage curb. Get on the power nice and early. And again, you can use the white rumble strip. Coming into the left-hander here, there's this white line in between the number 3 and 2 board. And I brake as I cross that, down into third gear, trail all the way up to about this sausage curb. Once you get the apex, then get on the power. I find it can be quite easy to unsettle the car here, so that's why I trail the brakes quite far into the corner. Getting on the power nice and early. Because you're driving up the hill here, you want to get on the power as early as possible. Again, white rumble strip is absolutely fine to use. Now, this and then the corkscrew after this are two very difficult corners because the apex are blind. So coming into this left-hander, I look for this 2 board and I brake and turn in at the 2 board. That's my reference. So here, braking at the 2 board and then trailing the brakes into the apex, and I actually get on the power before I even get to the apex. So you see there's no real reference for when I get off the brakes. I think probably the start of this inside curbing, but I wouldn't look there for your reference because you're going to be looking here instead of at your apex. So just get a feel for how much you need to trail the brakes. But as soon as you get that braking done and the car's pointed at the apex, then you want to get on the power. And you want to just get your inside wheel to clip here. If you clip this sausage curb, it'll bounce you wide into the gravel. And if you miss this apex, you'll find it really hard to get the rotation because this little dip here where the blue and white curbing is, the camber helps you to hook round the corner. So you want to aim to actually hook this, as that helps you rotate, as you see there. And then you can use all the exit curbing there. Just be careful for the off tracks because it is quite easy to trigger the off tracks. Now, coming into the corkscrew, I brake just a few meters after this white line here. So I'm braking quite early, all the way onto the right hand side of the track to open up this corner. And it's very, very easy to lock the fronts coming into this corner, just with the elevation change. So I try and get the braking done nice and early, trail the brakes in second gear, all the way up to the apex. Cut as much as you can on the left-hander here, and then get on the power, and the apex here is blind. So if you need a visual, look at this tree. You're kind of aiming for either this tree or the start of this barrier. Kind of in between here is where you want to be looking, because you're going straight down here, which is in line with this gap. So either this tree or slightly to the right of it, because you can hook a bit of this curb. Just get a feel for it for whichever visual reference works best for you, and you can clip a lot of this inside curbing. Just be careful because you can trigger the off track by clipping too much, but as you see, I'm quite far over the white line. Oops, get a better angle for you here. And as long as you keep those 2 tires on the left side of the white line, it'll still be valid. Now, try and keep the rear stable there. Don't go all the way to the left, you want to open up this left-hander. So let the car go to about this line here in the middle of the track, and then try and bring it back over to the right. You want to turn in just as this curb starts here, in third gear, and I'm just modulating the brake and the throttle to try and let the car coast to the apex almost. So you see just about 20% brake, then getting back on the power, just a little bit to keep the rear of the car planted, keep air going over that wing. And then as soon as you get the rotation for your apex, then get right on the power. Be careful not to clip the sausage curb because it will unsettle the car a lot. You can use this rumble strip. Just be careful not to use too much of it because it tends to hook you onto the right side of the track and you want to be getting over to the left. So don't use too much of it. I'm braking at just before this 2 board, kind of where this this white triangle starts. Just here, that's kind of my braking reference. So I'm braking into third gear, and as you see, I'm getting the braking done before I get to the end of this curve, and then getting a little bit of power, and then fully on the power once I get committed to that apex, trying to get as close to that sausage curb as possible without clipping it. using all this rumble strip on the exit, because you've got quite a bit of time to get over to the right hand side. You can use all of this, bring it over to the right, braking halfway between the 2 and the 3 at this white line. That's the great thing about Laguna, is the white triangles and these white lines are most of my references, so it's really not necessarily easy, but it makes it much more manageable to be consistent at this track because you've got those nice reference boards. So braking all the way into second gear and trying to open up this right hander as much as possible. Also, if you're doing like a quali or a hot lap, you can go really wide here and then straight line the final corner if you want to start a hot lap. Obviously during a hot lap you can't do that because that's slower, but I'm just trying to get as close to the apex, fairly late apex, and try not to clip too much of the sausage curb and just get on the power and open that steering wheel as much as possible. And you can use this green stuff as well. If you notice, if I do chase, the track limits I think is the end of this blue and white curbing. It's either the end of this blue and white curbing or it's the gravel. I can't remember. It's one of the two, but as you can see, you can go really wide here and it'll keep the lap valid. Just be careful that you don't go too wide and then get stuck onto the gravel, especially in racing conditions. But there you go, guys. That is a hot lap and track guide for Laguna Seca. I hope that helps you guys out for Racing Prodigy. And next week we will be doing the final track, which is Nevada. As always, guys, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and see you again next time.